Global Terrorism Index is the world's most comprehensive assessment about how countries perform in the fight against terrorism. The 2023 Global Terrorism Report Card has been officially released by the Institute for Economics and Peace. To share insights about Nigeria's latest ranking in the fight against terrorism is Babajide Ogunsanwo, a founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst. Great to have you, Babajide.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, indeed. And we're talking terrorism. So let's start off. What are the hard facts about terrorism, in Nigeria and, of course, in Africa as a whole?
So the first is, if you had asked a question on is Nigeria's election process improving, that I don't have an answer for. It's not an easy question. But if the question you've asked, is Nigeria improving regarding national security, the answer is yes. And that answer was provided by the Institute for Economics and Peace, because they are the world leaders when it comes to keeping track of all terrorism incidences and deaths around the world. But there are three things that come out within this report. The first is, this is Nigeria's best performance in a dozen years. Best performance in a dozen years, fact one. Fact two is, despite the success of Nigeria, the Sahel region in Africa, and if we take a look at what I mean by the Sahel region, and the map shows that the Sahel region in Africa is still the most dangerous place to live. Now, the Sahel region pretty much has a lot of challenges with insecurity, and the Institute of Economics and Peace places a high level of alert and warning on countries such as Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Mauritania, Niger Republic, and Senegal. Within the report, they say, yes, terrorism cases in Nigeria significantly decreasing. However, the challenge is that across the Sahel region, these key countries we've talked about, Burkina Faso, Gambia, Guinea, Mauritania, Niger Republic, Mali, and Senegal, these regions have rising number of terrorism cases, and if those cases keep rising, then we might have a challenge with the numbers we are seeing from Nigeria. And finally, the report also lets us know that though globally terrorism cases declined in 2022 relative to 2021, we now have a high concentration of terrorists who are unknown, classified as unknown jihadists. In simple terms, on an average, one in every three terrorism cases are now handled by people classified as unknown jihadists. And that is the challenge. Best performance for Nigeria in a dozen years. The challenges in Sahel region within Africa still rising, the most dangerous place to live in the world. And thirdly, we now have unknown jihadists who are conducting acts of crime and violence.
Which brings me to the next question, of course, the progress, talking about Nigeria's progress. How much are we making in reducing, terrorism-related deaths and, of course, cases?
The number speaks for itself. If you take a look at the report card from the Institute of Economics and Peace, they released the report and showed how much progress Nigeria has made since in the last 12 years. And here are the facts, Ayo. Keep an eye on 3 years, 2011, 2014, and 2022. In 2011, there were 175 terrorist attacks in Nigeria. The deaths related to terrorism in that same year, 447. That's the first row. Look at what happened in 2014. 2014 regarded as Nigeria's worst ever terrorism year. 713 terrorist attacks, resulting in more than 7,700 persons being killed. Now look at what has happened since 2021. 214 terrorist attacks, 497 deaths related to terrorism. But the fact shows last year there were 120 terrorist attacks, the lowest in a dozen years, lower than even the numbers in 2011. Deaths related to terrorism last year, 385, the lowest we've seen in a dozen years. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, what exactly has happened in the last 2 years, 2021 and 2022, that has led to a significant reduction in deaths due to terrorism? And one of the things we've seen is that In January 2021, there were appointments of new service chiefs. And the question is, was the appointment of new service chiefs sufficient? The answer is no. What we've seen is these new service chiefs, more than all other service chiefs before them, the fact shows that one key thing they've done more than the others, collaboration.
So let's talk about the impact then. Our citizens, can we say that citizens are now feeling the impact, of this reduced cases of terrorism?
Again, the number speaks by itself. If you take a look at the facts and the surveys, what it has shown is, yes, we've seen a lot of collaboration led by the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lokerabo, the Chief of Army Staff, Naval Staff, and Air Force, significantly collaborating to achieve these numbers. But again, if you ask people across the regions, some people believe security has improved, some might be indifferent, and some say terrorism cases are about the same. So let's take a look at what is exactly going on and the perception across the regions. And if you look at the question I was asked in February 2022, is security improving in the Northwest? In February 2022, 44% of those surveyed said security was improving. In February 2023, only 39% of persons living in the Northwest said security had improved. So in the Northwest, we see a decline in sentiments. However, in the North Central, February 2022, 38% of those surveyed said security had improved. We see a significant improvement last year, this year, February 2023, more people surveyed said security had improved. So overall, in the North Central, Northeast, Southwest, and South-South, families living in those four regions acknowledge that security has improved. In the Northwest, families still think security needs to be improved, and in the Southeast, it's about the same. So in all, Southeast, the perception about security this time last year is about the same this time when the survey was done last month. Four regions say they've seen improvements in security, and only in the Northwest have those surveyed said security has declined.
Well, it does definitely paint a rather good picture from what we've seen there. But let's now talk about the outlook of peace in the country. What is that outlook going forward?
And for me, the outlook is to look at the promises, the security promises of the President-elect Bola Tinubu, to look at how does he want to sustain this sort of positive numbers we've seen from the Global Terrorism Index. And one of the things we need to look at is what are his top 10 promises. First, he's talked about improving domestic production of military hardware. Two, he's talked about rehabilitation of the Lake Chad Basin, trying to make sure that the Lake Chad Basin and all the other ecological problems are reduced. He's also talked about increasing security personnel, enhancing their training, and improving welfare for their families, scholarships, allowances. Another idea from Bola Tinubu is saying that it's going to improve the use of communication technology and aerial surveillance equipment to sustain the security progress the sort of positive numbers that we currently are seeing. He's talked about improving border monitoring and patrol in his manifesto, saying that border monitoring and patrol will be one of the key things it will do to improve the state of national peace. Again, a new idea coming from him is talked about creating anti-terrorist battalions. How will that be implemented? Across which regions? How will it be funded? We are waiting for more information regarding the creation of the anti-terrorist battalions that was mentioned in his manifesto. One big idea coming from Bola Tinubu, the president-elect, is talked about critical infrastructure protection plan, that all national infrastructures will be protected using a new strategy. We're looking at how will that be implemented? If that is implemented successfully, yes, it will improve the numbers we are seeing from global terrorism, from the Global Terrorism report, and it will make Nigerians feel safer. Another idea from Bola Tinubu is the plan to reform the police and the NSCDC. It's talked about there will be police reforms, and the NSCDC, the National Security Defense Corps, will be reformed. Another big idea is Forest Guard Force. In his manifesto, he's talked about a deliberate plan to guard the forest. He believes that if he's able to achieve that by guarding the forest, by creating a Forest Guard Force, security will further improve. And finally, perhaps what will be his biggest test and create the biggest impact on security, he's talked about working with the states on an economic assistance program, and is clearly found and stated that defeating poverty is among his national security plans.
All right, definitely. There are lofty ideas from what we've seen there, and let's just hope that we continue to make improvements as far as
the key word to make improvements: collaboration. We're collaborating. We've seen the security chiefs collaborate. We expect whatever happens in the days ahead, collaboration will be sustained.
All right, thank you so much, Babajide Ogunsanwo, Channels Television's data analyst and founder of Leadership by Data.
We will keep collaborating.